Web Marketing That Works podcast, episode number 87, with today's guest, Donnie Bryant.
Welcome to the Web Marketing That Works podcast. Come behind the scenes of real-life marketing experiments and listen in as amazing guests confess the truth about what really works. Now, here are your hosts, Adam Franklin and Toby Jenkins.
My name's Adam Franklin, and you are listening to the Web Marketing That Works podcast. Thanks for joining me today. This is the show for people who love marketing on the web. I'm going to take you behind the scenes of real-life marketing experiments to show you the good, the bad, and the ugly. This show is brought to you by my book called Web Marketing That Works. Toby and I wrote that, and we've also got a free gift for you, which is the 33 free marketing templates from the book. So you can get your hands on those at bluewiremedia.com.au/book. So today's guest is Donnie Bryant, who's a direct response copywriter from Chicago, and he's written a couple of books. The first is called Stealth Selling, Non-Pushy Persuasion for Professionals. And the second book more recently is How to Beat Goliath, Even If You Can't Outright Kill Him. So both of those are available online, and I had the pleasure of meeting Donnie when I was over in Chicago earlier in the year. We caught up and had a bit of a powwow. We are friends from the same mastermind group, but that was actually the first time we met face to face, so really cool. I'm a big student of copywriting. I'm always looking to get better and better at it. So I was really interested to hear what Donnie had to say, given that is his specialty. And I can tell you what, I certainly learnt a lot from our chat. So I won't hold you up anymore. Let's get straight into the show with Donnie Bryant. My name's Adam Franklin, and I am joined today by Donnie Bryant. How are you?
Doing great, Adam. Thanks for having me on the show.
It is an absolute pleasure. It was lovely to meet you in Chicago, and a thrill to have you on the show today. Now, you are a copywriter. So what I'd like to start with is, what exactly is a copywriter, and why is it you do what you do?
Well, let me start by saying I've been bragging to everybody about meeting you in Chicago, so believe me, the pleasure was all mine.
Thank you.
And I was impacted by just the conversation that we had, and I appreciate who you are and what you're doing. So as a copywriter is, to make it very simple, when you read anything from the back cover of a book like you've got, or the packaging on your favorite cereal, to sales letters online, or the direct mail pieces that you get, technically, all of that is considered to be copy, and then the person who wrote it, whether or not they call themselves that, was a copywriter at that time, a professional copywriter. So that's something that I do almost exclusively, focusing on doing it. Whereas a lot of people do it because they have to. I need some writing on my webpage. I need some sales copy for my funnel. Well, I'm the guy who you would call if you don't want to do it yourself. Very, very simply, copy is the written word, whether it's online or on paper, or even in video scripts or audio scripts. And I'm just one of the guys who writes it.
Sure. So it's interesting. Before we get into why you do what you do, I find it interesting that the written word it's funny, I find, because if you're a copywriter, even if you don't see yourself as that, like say you're just say you're a marketer or a business owner, and you're writing something that's going to be seen in public, then a lot of people have this strange underappreciation, I guess, of what's involved and what makes good copy or good words versus what is not very effective in the written word. And I find it very strange. You know how a lot of people say they face writer's block, yet they never face speaker's block. And so that's one thing that fascinates me. And, I'm led to believe that good writing is written just the way you say it. So really, if you can speak, then you should be able to write. But on the other end of the spectrum, people don't seem nervous when they are writing stuff that's going to be out in public. Yet in terms of speaking, people will often say that they're terrified of public speaking because it's very public. It's fascinating. And see, if you do a speech in public, there's no record of it for the most part. It's not like, sometimes they're filmed, of course, but for the most part, it's just you give it once and then it's only in people's memories, and that fades pretty quickly anyway.
Right.
But the written word is out there very often, forever, and it's public, and people don't seem scared of that. Which there's two observations I wanted to make. But what is it that makes copy and copywriting so interesting for you, Donnie?
Well, I guess I've never thought of the comparison between writer's block and speaking block. I've never thought about that. That's pretty insightful. I know people like John Carlton will tell you there's no such thing as writer's block. It's, just you're right. But I think there's idea blocks. I do it all the time. As a matter of fact, I was working on a pretty big project today for my biggest client, and I didn't know where to start. I had been doing research, but where do you start? And I just started typing a letter to myself. This is true. And kind of starting to answer the questions that I wanted to get into, but asking them to myself and then reflecting on what I thought the answers were, just to get the forward motion going. Because once the forward motion is going, you broke the inertia and the writing starts to flow. A lot of writing teachers will tell you, once you've gotten 2 or 3 paragraphs on paper, and that's when you start hitting your steam. Probably you could chuck the first 2 or 3 paragraphs completely, just discard them completely, because that's you clearing your throat, as it were. If you were a speaker, you do that before you speak. When you're writing, it's kind of the same thing. You almost introduce what you want to do and tell you. Even I think professional writers, Stephen King probably does it, and you edit that out. I think writer's block is probably a real thing for people who actually care about the permanence of the written word. If it's going to be out there, you might be a little bit hesitant to just write whatever. But it's interesting because I guess I never compared the two. I think that's a pretty astute observation. What is it that makes copywriting interesting to me is I love the English language. I love language in general. And I mentioned Stephen King earlier, but Stephen King likened writing to telepathy. It's me beaming my thoughts into your brain through the instrumentality. That's a big word. I apologize. I'm using written words to make you think what I want you to think. And if you can figure out how to do that well, you can really influence how people behave and how they perceive the world, how they perceive themselves. And, what people pay me primarily to do is to make them take an action that they want them to take, which is buying something or opting into a list or, signing up for a webinar or what have you. So that's what's really interesting to me, influencing other people through purposeful communication.
I love that idea of beaming your thoughts into somebody else's brain. That's such a vivid way of describing copywriting and creating content in all forms, I guess. An interesting point, I think, is that copywriting very often has that intention of having somebody take action at the end of it. Would you agree with that? So like, for instance, if you're just blogging or if you're just writing recreationally, that almost isn't necessarily copywriting because you're not driving someone, you're not pushing someone forward towards taking action. Is that a fair assessment, or have I misjudged that?
Yeah, that's correct. The way that we use the term these days, or in marketing primarily, is creating a marketing message. Back in the old days, back in printed newspapers, if they still even do that, they called everything in the paper was copy. So just written word. I think one of the dictionary definitions is copy is a written word or a set of written words. But when we talk about copywriters today, it's primarily somebody who's writing a marketing message. Now, there are copywriters who do the clever, cutesy stuff that you see on Super Bowl commercials. The person who wrote the script for that is probably considered a copywriter, but he's not necessarily trying to do anything but make you chuckle and remember this goofy commercial. What I am is, we call it direct response copywriting, which is me writing in the voice of my clients directly to the consumer and trying to compel them to take a particular action. So your observation is correct, but you've kind of focused on the direct response part. There is a general non-direct response copywriting specialty. For people who just write, if you write a tagline, it's not necessarily making anybody do anything. It's just supposed to be kind of memorable and kind of descriptive. Does that make sense?
That does make a lot of sense. Okay, so for your direct response copywriting, we're typically driving people through your words to take some sort of action. So there's obviously some commercial impact there, and that's what your clients are typically hiring you for. Now, let's dive into your book, How to Beat Goliath. Let's look at the overall concept for How to Beat Goliath.
I actually created this book. It was a report that I was giving away for a while with the idea of helping people understand that you can be systematic about how you go about getting clients or customers. And it turned into a book, but the basic idea is you have to be two things that I think a lot of people are not, or a lot of businesses are not, is customer focused, meaning, a lot of times you'll go to somebody's website and they're talking about how wonderful they think they are and how cool they think their product is and how long they've been in business. And really the customer doesn't care about that really. What they care about is, what does all of that mean for me? What do I get out of this? So in your marketing messages, you have to be focused on what you can do for the people that you want to serve. And I say, even though I've been accused of being kind of mushy, you have to fall in love with your customers. Put them on a level where your main focus of your business is solving their problems. And that's the second thing. You're customer centric and you're focused on the power of problem solving, which is you have, if you have a diet product, your customers they want to lose weight, or really what they want to do is be healthier, feel better, look better, be more attractive to, the people they want to be attractive to, etc. So their problem is that they don't feel that way. And so you should not focus on, I have the coolest patent diet chemical that you've never heard of, or natural substance that's super exotic. That kind of, you use that to justify what's going on or to substantiate the claims that you're making. But really the focus needs to be on, you're going to feel better, you're going to look better, you're going to be able to perform better, and here's how this works for you. And again, so the purpose of the book is not to say we don't have to be random about this, just a one-off message and a one-off message. We should think about starting from there. What are my customers in need of? What's already out there, and where is there an underserved need, and an opportunity for me to add value to their lives, and then to begin to be systematic about that and moving into lead generation, not going directly for the sale, although that happens sometimes, but more often than not, we need to start with like what you say about having, cornerstone content. You have to have a piece of valuable content that gets them interested in what you're doing and helps them to see that you're an expert and that you can help them. Ideally, we'll use that content to get a lead. You'll get their contact information and permission to follow up with them and continue adding value to their lives. And then over the course of nurturing that relationship and adding value and showing how much you can help, how much you care, and how much you're the guy who can help them achieve the results that they want, then you eventually get to the point where you're selling them something. And then from there, expanding on that, selling them more stuff if it's applicable and if it will serve them, or referring them to other people who can help them, and just making the most out of that relationship. But kind of doing it, and the book is very short, but the idea is that you can do it kind of an A, B, C thing rather than just being random about it.
That's great, because it kind of takes a bit of the mystery out of how to communicate with, I guess, strangers, and then communicating with prospects and communicating with customers. And I guess copywriting is such an important part of that. And interesting that of the 5 building blocks, that the first 3 is all before you're talking sales. We're talking understanding their problem, understanding the mindset of the customer, and then actually delivering valuable, helpful content all before we're even talking about the customer value and the sales component of that. And then obviously the last building block you talk about of the connection multiplication
is going back to the value, right? You've sold something, and if you have one thing to sell, You could say, that's it. I've sold you a car, or I've sold you a cruise ship, whatever it is. But you shouldn't stop there, right? You should continue. You kind of already know how they think and what they want, what they need. But you can help them achieve so much more. And maybe that means no money for you. Although in the book, I think I talk about making money. But really what you want to do is maximize the value that you deliver. And copy is, of course, important to that, because I need to help you understand what the next step for you is. If that's, okay, I've sold you the car. Now here's where you can get your service. Or here's how you can get, what's something think of the cars? Like a Sirius radio, satellite radio that will make your car riding experience more enjoyable. Whatever. Even if that's through somebody that's not you. And then also getting referrals, which helps other people. It's all about helping other people. I think that your business is really not to gratify yourself. It's to serve other people. And of course, you should get something out of that.
Absolutely.
It's so important to have a message that helps people see, I can help you. I've got something very valuable here. It wouldn't do any good if I don't help you see that in a way that makes you want to participate. If it's good for you and I can help you, I should be trying to sell it to you, but not going directly for the sale in a pushy kind of way. I think that doesn't work anymore.
I think it's a big misconception with copywriting, especially sales copywriting or selling in general, is that you're out to manipulate people, but it's nothing of the sort at all, is it? It's being generous, and it's giving information that can help people and guiding them on a journey. And then if this product or service is right for this particular person, then there's the offer. And I guess that's that actual direct response piece where you're writing something that says, here's what I can do for you, here's what it costs, here's how you purchase it. But it's still providing a valuable service that's in the buyer's best interest. And I guess it's our responsibility as marketers or people who write copy is to make it very clear who the product is for and who the product isn't for. Because without that, then you're not getting the opportunity to maximize that customer value over the longer term, which is really where I think most of the revenue lies. Is that initial sale is just the start of the relationship, not the end of it, where you say, all right, I've got you $50 or $10,000 or whatever, and then you part ways and start back at the starting line looking for the next person. It's really the beginning, I think. And if you can get one customer to take that relationship to a commercial arrangement, then building in those value offerings after the sale is incredibly powerful.
I couldn't agree with you more. And you're right. I did say, even if it means no money for you on the back end, but in most businesses, the back end is where all the money is.
Yeah.
I remember Clayton Makepeace, who was one of the greatest copywriters in our generation of all time, who sold over $1 billion worth of products and services for his clients and got paid one time by a client just to not write for the other guy. He was on a retainer just to not write for the other guy. He was that good. But he said in one case where his client had a marketing director who reported to him as the freelance copywriter. And what Clayton said is, if on the front end we're making money, you're not doing your job. We want to just break even on the front to get as many people in as possible so we can maximize the back end. And again, because it's going to provide value for them, but we're going to get, as the provider, the business, we're going to reap so much extra value and so much extra revenue from providing this service for more people. Let's go after more people. We can help more people and touch more lives, make a bigger dent in the universe, rather than let's make $10 and then, churn and burn, or is that how you say it? Just burn through your clients and not pay attention to the ongoing value that's mutual. You provide value, you get revenue. You provide value, you get revenue. So I think you're right. You're 100% correct.
Now, Donnie, what are some mistakes that you see people make, possibly people who think they're copywriters or who are starting out? What are some common traps we can avoid?
There's a long list. I'll try to keep them to the big ones. And believe me, I've made every mistake that there is, probably, except for being abusive to people. But I think the first one, we kind of mentioned it is you have to be focused on the customer or the prospect. You can't be self-centered. Your message should not be about you primarily. And I say, even on your website, on your About Me page, it's not about you. It's about who you can help. And the only purpose for the About Me page is telling you why I should matter to you. not why I'm important. And, President Obama loves me, and nobody cares. They only care in that it helps them get what they want. So number one mistake, and I see it a lot, is self-centered copy. If you're talking about yourself more than you're talking about the person that you want to help, who you want to sell to, if we break it down, then you're making a mistake. And it's sometimes difficult to think that way because I want to sell today. I need to tell them what's so awesome about me. But again, people are they have their own issues. They have their own problems. They have their own lives. They have their own desires. And your desires are not what makes them spend money. They spend money because they have desires. And they spend money to solve their own problems. I saw a sign in my neighborhood on a store. This is a tangent. And there's a handwritten sign in the door that said, "Please support our business." That's all it said. And I'm thinking to myself, why would I do that? You haven't given me one reason to do that. Even, in America, we have Made in America, or support American businesses because we send so many businesses and jobs offshores or overseas, that those people who provide domestic jobs, some people that matters a lot to some people. So that gives me a reason if you said, hey, support my business because we're keeping jobs in America. It seems self-centered, but it resonates with me because I care about America. I want to support American businesses and keep our country's economy strong. But if you just say, hey, support my business, why? You're pretty much, just give me money is what your sign says. Give me money. But your message should say, I can do this for you. I can do this for you. Come inside and find out how, or find out more. So the number one mistake that I see people make is they're saying, support my business, or my business is great. Which, that's the wrong thing.
And then, just before we go to number two, Donnie, I think that's one of the most powerful words in the English language and in copywriting, isn't it? The word because. Because if it's support my business, that doesn't work. But if it's support my business because it put food on the table, or it supports America, or anything, it doesn't necessarily matter. But the fact that because it gives you that reason and that story. And from my studies of copywriting, I've realized that can be one of the most valuable words in the dictionary.
You've probably read Robert Cialdini's book, Influence, right?
I have, yes.
So he really explains it better than anybody else. There's another old book from John E. Kennedy called Reason Why Advertising, which is public domain. So if you go and look it up, you can get the entire book for free online, any place. The Reason Why Advertising. And the whole book is about giving somebody that because, telling them why it matters, why they should act now, why you're in it. And all of those things matter to people, but as a reference for how you're helping them. So you're right. Using the word because, and it's just using the word because kind of is a signal for us to know there's a deeper meaning. A lot of times things don't seem like there is. A marketing message just seems like talk. It just seems like noise. If there really is a because, there's really a reason behind it, a valid and important, meaningful reason, then all the more reason for me to listen, all the more reason for me to pay attention, and all the more reason for me to take the appropriate action. Again, I'm agreeing with you. You're spot on.
Yeah, cool.
The second thing is kind of overusing hype. Or I don't like to say over or under promise and over deliver, because I think under promising is stupid. If you have a dentist who says, I'll get your teeth pretty clean, it won't take that long, it won't hurt that bad, and it won't cost you too much. You haven't done me any justice. I don't want to go to you as a dentist. I want to go to the guy who's going to get my teeth really clean, and it's not going to hurt at all. And it's, whatever the price is. I didn't even mean to bring up price, but, give me meaningful specifics without going over the top. Because if you say your teeth are going to be so white that you'll blind everybody who sees you. Mm-hmm. If you say that in a way that you intend for me to believe that, if you're joking, it's one thing, but joking is always kind of iffy. Don't say something that's not true, but don't underpromise. If you can deliver on something, have the guts to say, I can deliver on that thing. If you're the smartest content marketer on the planet, and I think Bluewire, you guys are up there, say it. There's no reason in shying away from the big claims. If you've got the goods, then say it. But again, you have to be bold without being hypey, if that makes any kind of sense.
Total sense.
We like to use exclamation points and all of the adjectives that you can think of, the super greatest, most wonderful widget on the face of the earth. Maybe that's true, but the sentence, that statement sounds, too good to be true. It sounds too good to even listen to. Yeah, it has to be meaningful. If you say my widget can improve your whatever kind of thing we can think. We were talking about cars. It can improve your gas mileage 50% instantly, or your money back. Then you're being specific, but you're making a big claim. You could say, it'll improve your gas mileage by 10%, just so I don't overpromise. But why would you do that? If you can do it, you can improve it by 50%. Have the guts to say it. If you're the world's leading expert on such and such, have the guts to say it. So I think that's number 3, is not being bold enough and big enough in what you say. So 2 and 3 kind of seem like they counter, they go against each other.
Opposite sides of the same coin. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
You have to temper your boldness with, language that doesn't seem over the top. I mean, that's not over the top. It doesn't come off as hype. It doesn't come off as dishonest. But at the same time, you can back up what you're saying. And I think the 4th thing, and then I'll shut up for now, is not being different. So many times you just say what the other guys in your industry are saying. You saw the ad for your other neighborhood, your competitor, and you just kind of do the same thing that they're doing. And that's really the wrong way to go. Because if it's the same, there's no reason for them to choose you over the other guy. And they may not even notice. They may not even realize that you're the competitor. They may think you're the same person. They may think you're the same business because they don't see a difference. You have to have, in selling and in marketing, they call it a unique selling proposition or a unique value proposition or a competitive advantage, which I think you actually have to have. You can't just come up with something that sounds good. You have to have something about your business that gives anybody a reason to do business with you.
Some real substance.
Some real substance. That's right. And then work that into your marketing message or your sales message in a way that calls out to the people who that will be valuable for. Because your unique value proposition isn't valuable to everybody, which goes back to determining who your product is for. For those people for whom it's valuable, make sure you tell them, hey, I can achieve this result, help you achieve this result. So it's going to matter to some people and it won't matter to most people, but you can't help most people. You can only help, that group of people for whom you have the right solution. That's pretty good. That covers a lot of ground.
That does. And I think there's a point you made in 2/3 there that I think is worth touching on again, is you mentioned about the hype and using lots of adjectives and adverbs. And I think that's probably a big clue or a big signal that if you're writing something and it's full of adjectives and adverbs, that actually isn't very good copywriting, because there should be a better, more clear, concise way of putting it. And if you do find that you do, I don't forget what your example was, but it was hilarious, but 3 adjectives in a row, every single sentence, then that's probably a time to, get the, what we used to use, liquid paper out and remove a few words.
That's why editing is so important, but you really want to make the verbs do the work. If your product is better than their product, you can say my product is super awesome, right? Or you could say my product wipes the floor with, the competitor. It's descriptive. It's visual. You can see it happening and it doesn't come off the same. Like if I say it's super awesome, like that, first of all, nobody even believes super awesome anymore. It's just awesome is an overused statement. But, okay, even if you say wipes the floor with, I think it's better, but it still sounds hype. If you can be specific, it outperforms, competitor X in this way and in that way. But making the verbs do the work rather than, if you have to, like you said, if you have to rely on adjectives and adverbs, it's a sign of kind of desperation that as a writer, you should look at yourself and say, ooh, I don't have any substance here. I have to rely on, fluffing it up with these adjectives. There is an appropriate use of adjectives and there's an appropriate use of adverbs. But if every sentence has 2 and 3 of them, you're kind of flailing around hoping to sound like you're saying something.
So if you're writing and you've got your dictionary open next year and you've got synonyms.com open, and then maybe then maybe that's a sign.
Maybe that's the fifth point. You really want to use plain language.
Yeah, and then I love that.
Like you said earlier.
That's the thing. Make the verbs do the work. I think that's a really powerful note to finish on there, Donnie. Before we call it a day, I guess, is there a final piece, any final words of wisdom or anything you want to get off your chest before we wrap this up?
I've probably said everything I really want to say. Remember, in any situation, in business situation, it's not about you. When you're selling, it's not about you when you're writing copy or shooting a video or writing a blog post. It's not really about you. It's about your customers or those should-be customers, the people who should be buying from you. It's kind of your job to make them see that you can provide them value. So, and every time you go out into the marketplace or you're planning how to do it, think about them first before you start thinking about you, and only think about yourself in a way that kind of supports them. What can I do for them? And I know that your marketing message will be more powerful and your sales messages will resonate more deeply, and you're going to have better business. You're going to have better long-term customer loyalty and retention just by switching your focus like that.
Awesome. Well, mate, thank you for that. Finally, you've got at least 2 books. There's Stealth Selling, Non-Pushy Persuasion for Professionals, and there's How to Beat Goliath, Even If You Can't Outright Kill Him. Both are available online, so I recommend listeners get their hands on those. Now, where else can people find out more about you, Donnie?
Thank you for that recommendation. My website is donnie-bryant.com. It's kind of boring. I don't spend a lot of time over there. I'm on social media, although I don't spend a ton of time there either. On Twitter, it's Donnie Bryant JR. And then you can look me up. I'm the main Donnie Bryant on LinkedIn. I don't spend a lot of time on Facebook, but I'd love to connect with your listeners in any way that I can be helpful. It'd be my pleasure.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that information on the podcast. And I've learned a lot from this. I've learned a lot from your work in general. So thank you, and thanks on behalf of our listeners. And have yourself a great evening, Donnie.
And you do the same. I guess, is it morning for you?
Lunchtime for me.
Okay, we'll have a great afternoon. And thank you again for having me on the show. It's been a lot of fun, and it's been a pleasure.
Always a pleasure to chat to you too.
Cheers.
And that's a wrap for my chat with Donnie Bryant, the direct response copywriter. Now, just looking through the notes that I took during that podcast, what really stood out for me was the fact that you're beaming your thoughts into someone else's brain through your words. And I thought that was just such a powerful way of explaining what it is that he's able to do through copywriting. And of course, it all comes back to understanding your clients, or your problems you're solving for them, and being generous and all of that. An interesting way of looking at it, I think, because to think that the combination of letters and words that you put down into your computer or into a document can then help shape people's lives or have an impact on them in some way forever, basically, because what we publish online is essentially there forever. So when you think about it in that respect, it's quite powerful stuff. Some of his tips as to what actually makes good writing versus hypey writing or unconfident writing was really quite eye-opening for me. And I loved his quote, "Make the verbs do the work." I'm definitely going to keep that in mind as I put together my Bluewire news, or I write sales copy for some of our programs. Focus on the verbs, not the adjectives and the adverbs, which can very often just clutter things up when we don't really know what we're saying. So the purpose of these podcasts is to deliver actionable advice, and I certainly feel like Donnie gave us some real gems today. I would appreciate your feedback if you've ever got any questions or guest suggestions or general thoughts about the show or anything you'd like to know. Please feel free to drop me a line. I'm accessible via email, and the address is adam.franklin@bluewiremedia.com.au, or you can tweet me at Franklin_Adam. As I said at the start, the show is brought to you by our gift, which is the 33 marketing templates from our book, which is also called Web Marketing That Works. So to get your hands on those, simply head to bluewiremedia.com.au podcast.com/book, and they're all yours. Finally, thanks for listening through to the end of the show. If you liked the show, and I do hope you did, I would love it if you could take 60 seconds to head over to iTunes and to leave us a rating. It would really be much appreciated, and it certainly helps our visibility on iTunes so that we can continue getting good quality and interesting guests onto the show. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.